In a quiet American town, there was a man nobody really noticed. He didn't speak much. He didn't try to stand out. He didn't post online, didn't chase attention, didn't even have many friends. People passed by him every day like he was just part of the background. But what nobody knew was that this silent man was changing lives in ways no one could see, until the day everything came to light. And when it did, the whole town realized something shocking: the quietest person in the room had the loudest impact of all. Before we start today's story, if you believe kindness still matters in this world, take a second to like this video, subscribe to our channel, Kindness Story Hub, and comment where you're watching from. Your support helps spread real stories that inspire real change. Now, let's begin. His name was Daniel Mercer. He was in his late 50s, lived alone in a small rented apartment above an old hardware store, and worked as a night janitor at a local high school in Ohio. Most people didn't even know his name. Students just called him the janitor guy. Teachers barely noticed him unless something was messy. And that was exactly how Daniel liked it. He moved through life quietly, almost invisibly. Every night, after the school emptied, he would arrive with his worn cleaning cart, humming softly to himself. He never complained, never rushed, never asked for recognition. But Daniel had a habit that nobody understood. Every night, after finishing his cleaning, he would leave behind small things: neatly placed lunches in the cafeteria fridge, extra gloves in the gym, pencils on students' desks, sometimes even handwritten notes that simply said, "You've got this." No name. No signature. Just kindness left behind like footprints in the dark. At first, no one noticed. But slowly, students began finding these little surprises. A tired student would open their locker and find a snack waiting. A struggling athlete would discover extra bandages in their bag. A nervous test taker would find a note that somehow came exactly when they needed it most. People started calling it the school's mystery angel. No one knew who it was. One winter morning, everything began to change. A high school student named Emma Carter, a shy girl dealing with anxiety and financial struggles at home, found a warm jacket inside her locker. It was brand new, her size, and exactly what she needed for the freezing weather. Inside the pocket was a note. "You are stronger than you think. Keep going." That was the moment something inside Emma broke open. Not sadness, but hope. She started paying attention. Watching. Waiting. Trying to figure out who was behind these small miracles. And one night, she stayed late after school. She hid in a quiet hallway, pretending to study, her heart racing as the janitor arrived. That's when she saw him. Daniel Mercer. He wasn't doing anything dramatic. He wasn't glowing or magical or mysterious like she expected. He was just careful. Quiet. Folding forgotten lunch trays. Cleaning chalkboards. Making the school feel a little less heavy. Then she watched him do something that changed everything. He opened his old backpack and pulled out a box of snacks he had clearly bought himself. He walked down the hallway and placed them in lockers, one by one. Then he paused at a classroom door. Looked around to make sure no one was watching. And slipped a note under the door. Emma's breath caught. This wasn't random kindness. This was intentional. Daily. Sacrificial. She followed him from a distance the next night. And the night after that. What she discovered shook her deeply. Daniel wasn't just leaving small gifts at school. On his way home, he stopped at a homeless shelter and quietly dropped off extra food. Once a week, he paid a student's cafeteria debt. Sometimes he left envelopes with cash in mailboxes of families he knew were struggling, but never made it obvious. And yet, he lived like he had nothing. His shoes were old. His jacket was worn. His apartment lights barely stayed on some nights. Emma finally gathered the courage to talk to him. One evening, after school, she approached him as he mopped the hallway floor. "Why do you do it?" she asked softly. Daniel paused. He didn't look surprised. He just kept mopping. "I know what it feels like," he said quietly. Emma waited. He sighed, leaning on the mop handle. "I was invisible once too. When I was younger, I went through some hard years. No one noticed me. No one helped. I told myself, if I ever got the chance, I wouldn't let other people feel that way." His voice wasn't dramatic. It was calm. Like he had accepted this purpose long ago. Emma felt tears building in her eyes. "But you don't even tell anyone," she said. Daniel gave a small, tired smile. "Kindness doesn't need an audience," he replied. Emma couldn't stop thinking about him. She started quietly helping too, leaving extra supplies in lockers, writing encouraging notes, even replacing the snacks he used from his own money. And slowly, something unexpected happened. Other students began doing the same. At first, they didn't even know why. They just felt different. Lighter. More aware of each other. The school started changing. Bullies became quieter. Lonely students found friends. Teachers noticed more respect in hallways. It wasn't sudden. It was subtle. Like sunlight slowly filling a dark room. But Daniel never took credit. He just kept cleaning floors, fixing messes, and leaving behind small acts of care like invisible sparks. Then came the moment everything became public. A local parent had installed a small security camera in the hallway after some theft incidents. One night, reviewing footage, they saw Daniel Mercer. They saw everything. The lunches. The notes. The jacket. The money. The quiet acts of giving that had been happening for years. The story spread. First the school. Then the town. Then the entire state. People were stunned. A janitor, making barely enough to survive, had been silently carrying the emotional weight of hundreds of students and families. A week later, the school held an assembly. Daniel was called to the front. He looked uncomfortable, shifting slightly as students and teachers stood up and applauded. He raised his hand, trying to stop it. "I didn't do anything special," he said into the microphone. But the principal shook his head. "You did everything special," he replied. Emma stood in the crowd, tears in her eyes. She wasn't just watching a man get recognition. She was watching someone finally being seen. After that day, Daniel's life changed, but not in the way people expected. He didn't become famous in the way he wanted. He still worked at the school. He still cleaned floors. He still stayed quiet. But now, people smiled at him. Students said thank you. Teachers asked how he was doing. And more importantly, the kindness didn't stop. It multiplied. Because what Daniel had proven was simple but powerful. You don't need money to change lives. You don't need attention. You don't need a platform. You just need to care, even when no one is watching. Years later, Emma graduated. In her speech, she talked about the janitor who taught her what real strength looks like. She said, "He never raised his voice. He never asked for credit. But he changed more lives than anyone I've ever met." And somewhere in the audience, Daniel Mercer quietly listened. Not as a hero. Not as a legend. But as a man who simply chose kindness every single day. The story of Daniel Mercer reminds us that the loudest impact in life doesn't always come from loud voices. Sometimes, it comes from silent hands placing hope where it's needed most. And maybe, just maybe, the world doesn't need more noise. It needs more people like him. Because in the end, kindness doesn't need to be seen to be powerful. It just needs to be given. And when it is, it echoes forever.